Welcome to the Founders Chat, where I talk with entrepreneurs every week. Today we have Mark Stanton from Agentix Global. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to see you. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure. So maybe we can start with a quick pitch. Tell me what is Agentix Global.
So, Agentix Global is an AI and data talent specialist operational globally. We specifically work UK, UAE, and UK and continental Europe. We've been established since April, but we've been in the talent game for 25 years.
That's great. And I see that you're focusing in AI talent specifically. So how does this compare with the more traditional tech recruiter?
So my co-founder and I moved into AI and data specific recruitment 7 years ago. So before it infected everyone's LinkedIn profiles, we were already kind of paving the way with intelligent automation, standard automation that moved to, generative AI and then into AI specifically. And then data's the new oil, right? So we've kind of moved into it. So when I started, I was doing Unix systems administration for banks. So for me, the journey's been amazing. So it's less antiquated and a lot more fast paced, which the large corporate recruiters that we worked for at the time couldn't handle the pace of the AI market, which is why James and I set up Agentix Global.
And yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense because data scientists, I think they're kind of the predecessors of what we call today AI, right?
Yeah.
All right. And well, you mentioned that before Agentix Global, you've been in the industry for 25 years. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about why you decided to start this and what was the relationship with the co-founder, main reasons.
So I've worked with James for 16 years. So we started at a very well-known brand called Computer People, which is no longer in existence. It's now moved into the Adecco Group and is called Acodis, where we were number one contract biller and number one permanent biller. So we were dealing with it was a generic IT recruitment company. So it wasn't specialist, although the managing director at the time pushed us to drive specialization, which is where James and I found our niche. So as I said, I did Unix. He did really early on Oracle type work. We then went to another big well-known recruiter, Hayes. And then lastly, we went to a company called Acorn by Synergy. We set up Agentix Global because we were at the right point in our lives where we wanted to do something completely different. We wanted to be able to work transparently with customers on their growth journey. So, it's not the case of a corporate can't do that, but the corporates that we work for was very much, this is how it is. Whereas now Agentix, we can move at the growth plan of the client. So if they're looking to hire a team of people, we can help them with that, and we can transition via an employed model, or we can hire fractional or contract staff, or indeed build their permanent headcount for their teams.
So you always move together with James through the different companies?
So my daughter thinks we're brothers, actually does think we're brothers. Yeah, we have a good relationship. So yeah, it's
Wow.
unusual. It's unusual to work with someone in that regard, but it means that we've got a lot of confidence in each other's ability. So if one of us drops the tools, the other one picks them up really quickly. So we play into us. James is a real specialist at driving permanent hires. He knows how to do that candidate journey, whereas I'm more business development and look for contract work. That's how it typically works. But to be honest, we just work together really, really well, seamlessly. He's my work husband, as some people say.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's a beautiful story. You're lasting longer than most marriages.
Yes, specifically mine. Yeah.
Yeah, this is amazing. I have a few colleagues that I brought with me in different companies, but
Yeah.
it's not always easy. It depends. If you go to a big one, sometimes it's not possible. So I'm really happy to see that it worked for
So
you. And now
we've joined together and we've left together, and it was just the natural time for both of us to start Agentix, and we both have similar visions. So James is a DJ and a mountain biker, and I love surfing and skateboarding and all that kind of stuff. So we built a brand that is based around our personalities, which is why we're so enthusiastic about it, because we put a lot into it.
yeah, that's great. And something that I see a lot of successful businesses, and I'm speaking about businesses, not startups specifically, are people that worked in specific industry for like you. many years, and then you know exactly how it works, you know the internals, and then you go for it, the chances of
Yeah.
success are much higher. And because with startups, sometimes we're chasing,
Yeah, yeah, exactly that.
and it's sometimes it's really hard. The reward is high, but the risk is extremely high. So the success rate is very low. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And about, I want to ask you, were there any? I know you've been here for 8 months and you're doing
Mhm.
great, but were there any pivots or maybe things that you're doing different now comparing with day one?
100%. Yeah. So we are very selective about who we work with now. So from day one, we were just like, get clients, get clients, get clients. And now it's a lot more. We really want those customers to be on the same page. So James and I work at pace. In fact, today is the day we launch our flagship USP. So our unique selling point is James and I can find the resource that you need for your team within 72 hours. You can literally, as long as terms are agreed, we've had a brief with the stakeholder or the hiring manager that's going to work with that person day to day. We can guarantee that we will find that talent for you within 72 hours, 3 days. Most corporate organizations wouldn't really agree with that, that working structure, recruiters, I mean. So, but we're pretty passionate about what we do. If the requirement's there, terms are signed, everything's agreed, and we can find those people within 3 days. And if they're not there, then there's a problem with the job spec, not with our search, because our network is vast and huge and global and delivers. And we've had instances over that 8-month journey when we've delivered in 2 hours. And we've had instances where it's got to the 72-hour point and we've said, look, that person just actually doesn't exist. So the client's like, okay, so would it exist if it was two people? And it's like, yep, start the clock rolling and off you go. We find two people within the 72 hours. That's fine.
This looks like it sounds too good to be true. I remember hiring, maybe now it's different, you will tell me, but 5 years ago in 2020, I was trying to assemble the team and some positions were taking months to be filled.
It depends. How did you do that then? Was that through an MSP or was that through an on site talent team?
Yeah, no, we were, it was a mix of different things, but we were hiring recruitment agencies.
So what we would say is, if you're hiring multiple agencies, you're muddying the water. If you come to a true specialist, an Agentix Global, for example, this is the opportunity. It's yours. We only need it for 3 days, as I've said. So give it to us for 3 days. We will find that talent. The only thing that you will need to assess as a customer is, will they emotionally fit in my team?
Yeah.
Technically, we'll hit the marker, no issue. But people can't relate to people without meeting the people. So we
Yeah.
can find the person, but as I said, everything it needs to be agreed with the customer before we go out and do that search, because that's a lot of effort from our side. So typically after that 72 hours, 2 days later, I want the candidates interviewed. So it keeps them interested in the process. A lot of organizations these days drag their feet, drag their heels about how long the process takes, 6, 7 interviews, a client
Yeah.
presentation, etc., etc. It's like,
This is a super good point that you mentioned there. The candidates arrived, you are taking care of the technical interviews.
we can take, if the customer is able to let us know what they want tested, then we will provide that within that time frame. So we'll have the candidate submission, we can arrange the technical tests. We typically provide GitHub profiles so that the client can see that stuff. What it's never a bottleneck in the sourcing. The bottleneck comes from the customer that can't move at the same pace as Agentix can move.
All right.
So
So
as long as that process is in place, so we typically agree from the outset, right?
yeah.
We're going to send you the candidates in 72 hours. You're going to interview the candidates within 48 hours after that. And then the ball is rolling. The candidate is in process. They're engaged. They want to work there because they're like, wow, this is actually a real opportunity. Amongst the 20,000 applications they've made on LinkedIn, half of which don't exist, this one is real. And I'm dealing with a stakeholder. They're going to make a decision quickly and I'm going to get the job that I've wanted and looked for. It
Amazing.
shows appetite on both sides.
So just to understand correctly, imagine that I am the hiring manager and I want somebody with experience in systems design, right? And I tell you, hey, Mark, look, I want candidates that know how to do a system design interview or
Mhm.
test. Will you take care of this interview, or you will do like this HR screening, and then the interview process will be taken care, like the company will take care of the interview process?
So it's completely up to the client. So we would say we will screen them. What works best is if the stakeholder can give us 5 and 10 questions they would
All right.
typically ask in the first interview. Yeah, it doesn't take them long. It's in their head. Put it on paper. Let us do that. Then we present the CV, the answers to the questions, and any other supporting information they need. Typically, we ask candidates to write a why they think they would fit in the opportunity. We never format a CV, so they're always sent in their terms so they can see what their presentation skills are like. And then when they get to the interview, really, they can ask some technical questions, but they should know that they're competent if they trust us to know what we're doing with 25 years experience, blah, 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 blah. What they need to say, will this Alan fit in my team? Will they fit in their team? That's all it is.
That's great. And yeah, I guess that you're interviewing candidates all the time, so you have more experience than the hiring manager because you do 10 times more interviews probably for similar roles.
And look, candidates tend to be a lot more open at the very start of the process with us, the talent business, rather than they do the customer because they don't know what to say, how to respond, how you're going to treat them. Whereas we can extract that information correctly. Then when they're meeting you for the first interview, it's like, we've got all this information. There's a few points we need to check, but great. Why don't you come and meet us face to face even, which is a rarity these days, or on a Teams call, etc. And move the process along really quickly.
Yeah, and something that happens a lot hiring is that people get really nervous
Of course.
when they speak with the hiring manager because at the end they're speaking with the decision maker. But when they speak with somebody else, with you, for example, you're teaming up with them. And this is something that because as a hiring manager, I hired a lot of people in different startups and
Yeah,
in Google actually. And my advice is try as much as you can to treat the interview like a conversation with a friend because
exactly that. Yeah,
they,
and interview them. You're
yeah,
going to work there. Treat it as you're interviewing them. That's just as important. Have those questions that you really want to get clarity on. Perhaps don't lead with the salary. We always try to get confirmation of the salary before the CVs goes over because we don't want any changes down the process. But we do try to say, look, have it as an equal meeting. We tend to call it an
yeah,
informal first meeting, right? And then it gets to the second one. Also, customers these days are listening. When they use a specialist, they are not putting as many hurdles in the road. You know, there's not a 7 interview stage process unless that hire is really senior and they need to meet a lot of people. Get those people on one call.
yeah. But it's really hard because I think it's easy to say that at the end of the day there is like there is a difference. Usually, if the interviewee is interviewing only for one company, if you have multiple options, then it's different. You're at the same level. But otherwise, hiring manager has many candidates, and the interviewee, the candidate, can feel like, okay, my life depends on this. So then I get super nervous. And then it's counterproductive because I see this a lot. Like you ask somebody a tough question, and that person, instead of telling you, I'm not sure I get it, and asking follow up questions, some people try to answer to guess. And this is the worst thing you can do because in real life, you're not going to guess about the real problem that you're having at work. You're going to try
Yeah.
to have the conversation and come up with a better output.
So all interviews are false environments, right?
Yeah.
They're all false environments. Even more so now that the world has moved to a virtual interview more than it has a face to face. Back in the day, you'd have 3 or 4 interviews on site at the customer you're going to work in, and then you'd be starting there full time. The world's a different place now. So we always try and say that, look, it's why you use an agency so you can get that coaching pre-interview,
Yeah.
get as much knowledge as you can, understand the person, the journey, the project and the way forwards and what you're going to add value to and sell yourself. A lot of people don't like to sell themselves, but if their
Yeah.
skills say it all on the CV, then you're just validating those skills. Also, a lot of the market's changed. So a deep techie used to be a deep techie, they didn't need that social interaction. The world's changed and a
Yeah.
lot of people within AI, yes, you've built this. Now explain it to someone that doesn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
more and more. So customer facing skills or social interaction skills are ever more
Yeah.
important. In fact,
Co-
more
co-
so.
Communication. I posted a tweet yesterday saying my opinion is it's a kind of an unpopular opinion for engineers, but I think coding skills are becoming less and less important, and like architecture, design, communication are becoming the top one skills because
Absolutely
today,
agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. And the use, AI and all the different tools we have around us aren't taking our jobs. They're enhancing the people that
Yep.
choose to use them. It's so cheesy, but it's actually giving humans superpowers.
Yep.
Think Iron Man, not Terminator, if we were to put films on it. That's the key, right?
Yep.
Because it's for good. You use it. So coding, there was an instance where Blue Prism, an old automation tool, so we knew one of the top 10 Blue Prism developers in the world, and there's the code that needs to be written, but we're also going to write it in a large language model. The large language model, 99% accurate. The top 5 coder, top 10, Blue Prism guy, 89%.
Yep. Yeah.
However, the automation can't relay it to the customer.
But there are so many examples in history. But the thing is, now we are living this. In the past, my grandparents, they were telling they studied calligraphy in school, right? Like how
Yeah,
to
yeah.
write pretty, right? And this was a job. And people were spending 40 hours per week just writing pretty. This job disappeared at some point with the computers, right? But these people can focus like on the message, like, and
Yeah.
now it's similar. It's like, okay, coding, it was a skill, and actually I'm good at this, but this is something that I don't do anymore. It's like now I know what to ask the AI, and it generates code better than I would, because it knows every little library and optimization detail. But I can focus in the creativity part, the communication, system architecture, what we were discussing. So I agree. I think it's an AI tools are amplifying what we can do. Fully agree on that. Something you mentioned before, you said, yeah, now comparing with a few months ago, we are choosing our clients. So what is the red flag that you see that and you say, okay, I don't want to work with this company?
Typically, anyone that doesn't agree the terms of business, because we're really transparent and really flexible, because there's just us, right? So we can be, whereas we work for a corporate, it was 20% whatever,
Okay.
it's always fixed. Now we're a lot more transparent, flexible. We bend over backwards for customers. But when we don't get a response after sending candidates, when it feels like they're looking for a not just a unicorn, but a multicolored unicorn, and they're not willing to look at how that realistically in the market is shaped. If they interview badly, because as much as people interview, we've had instances where people have come back and they're like, that guy's great, but the guy who's interviewed has said, there's no way I'm working for them. So we don't tend to want to work with customers like that because it's negative. Or, people that are just use loads of recruitment agencies, send the same job spec. So we end up speaking to people that have spoken to 6 times. I've been called 10 times about that role. No, we're not interested in that. We're good at what we do. So we do it exclusively. We do it in 3 days. You find your talent. If that isn't an appetite for you, then do you really want the hire? If you're looking to hire in 6 months, come back to us in
Yeah.
5 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days, and then we'll sort it out. But there's no point. Otherwise, you're just going to burn and sit on candidates. And it's not good for, our clients aren't just the customer, but the candidate as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Their journey into new employment is absolutely imperative these days, probably as important as the customer.
Yeah. No, I really like your approach, and I think that the promise is amazing. I can see how founders are coming, because hiring fast is key these days. That everything is moving so fast.
So if you win the project Friday, then by Wednesday, I'm telling you, you can have an idea of what that talent looks like. You can really start to move it forward. Be real. On the back of that, if you need a rate card, you need to know what a UK salary is, a US salary. You need to know what the salary is in South Africa. We can do that, and that's cool. But just let us know that you're doing that kind of exercise. Or if you're bidding for work and you're like, I need to put a team of 10 AI engineers together, can you give me a section of the market that would be interested in their rates or their salaries? We can do that. That's fine. Just let us know it's pre-sales. Because if you want to move fast, and when you press the button, then we will work fast. And then the customer it's not us, but the customer tends to have egg on their face because we've delivered, and the candidate will be pushing us, and it leaves a sour taste. As long as everyone's transparent, then
Yeah.
it works really quickly and really well.
Amazing. All right, so let's switch to your day to day, your personal time. How do you handle starting a business? How does a day-to-day, regular day looks like for you?
This is key. This is key. This has everything on it these days. Back when I started, it was a BlackBerry, if anyone remembers those.
Yeah.
Now it's a mobile with everything on it. So I work really well with my co-founder. We've both got children, so we do the school runs typically. So my first candidate briefing this morning, for example, was at 7 a.m. My daughter was eating her Rice Krispies. I was speaking to a candidate. I take her to school, then I'm clear until for the rest of the day. So we manage it how we've always managed it. If I'm honest, it never stops, but at the same time, it does stop. I
And I
think my
guess,
co-founder was arranging interviews on Saturday and Sunday.
yeah, exactly. I guess in this industry, you have like extreme times, like very early or very late in the evening calls because people working,
Yeah.
sometimes they can't just get calls 9 to 5, right?
Yeah, ours is people business, right? So, but a lot of people these days can communicate. So WhatsApp is your friend, or, every kind of messaging platform, whichever they want to use is fine. We get calls at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and that's fine. We manage that. That's what you do, right?
And you mentioned that you do mountain bike and sports, and this is aligned with your brand. I love that. It's very
Mhm.
personal and professional at the same time. I like your colors. They are
It's cool,
quite
right?
aggressive. Yeah.
It's my daughter's favorite color is yellow. So my daughter's she's only 6, but she's 6 next week. She survived really extreme stage 4 liver cancer when she was 2.5. Kind of brings a lot in perspective when you have to go on a journey where your daughter's nearly died a few times, down in surgery, etc. And she went from not being able to walk, talk, eat, go to the toilet, anything. She was 12 months in a hospital bed, and she's gone from there to learning to snowboard, learning to swim, paddleboard, ride a bike, go to school every day, and she smashes life. And Agentix is really kind of built, from my perspective, on that kind of stuff. So try new things, do it well. And, that's the inspiration behind my side of the brand.
Yeah, and I can see because you told me this in the past. Now that you're telling me the story again, I can see a link in between going for it, taking the risk, and
Yeah.
working hard, even doing sports. She's the motivation for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was times when we didn't think she'd be walking through the school gates. Now she runs through. So, that's just one of those life things. And we're involved in sports. My co-founder's a DJ. He DJ'd in Ibiza this year. He's a regular on a radio show on a Monday night, upfront dance. You've got to listen 6 till 8, house classics. But, we use that and those passions in our work, because if you enjoy what you do, then you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah. I
And we
completely
love
agree.
what we do. So to
Yeah.
us, we
I can tell. And how do you fit these workouts in between these uh, early calls, late calls? Do you have a routine, or is hard to have a routine?
it's hard to have a routine with a child anyway, to be fair. But we do. So I do weights at home, and James goes to the gym, or I go to the gym. We fit it in life. It's because there's 2 of us. Most startup recruitment companies, there's just one person, and I just don't imagine how that would work. So we can take the slack off each other. If I'm on holiday, picks up the day to day. If he's on holiday, I pick up the day to day. It works really well, and probably that's why we gel so well.
I do a lot of sports as well, but I need to have a routine. Otherwise, I'm not consistent. And
Uh-huh.
every day at the same time, I put the alarm like super traditional way. Otherwise, I just can't. All right, and
So have you got
let's.
children yet, Alan?
Yeah. This is something that I can tell. I'm not there yet. Looking forward to it.
So enjoy that routine. Enjoy keeping to that routine once you have a child. It ain't ever going to happen. They kind of change the routine. You can be
Yeah,
doing weights in the lounge and then end up having to do weights with the child instead.
actually, I'm looking forward to it, but let's
That's
see.
great. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
But it
yeah,
does change your life. It's a different way of living completely,
yeah.
because you cherish those moments every time.
Okay, let's switch a little bit to the technical stack. How are you leveraging AI? How are you using AI in your workflows, automations?
So we're terrible. So the back office is automated and uses AI and everything else to process invoices, do all the sort of financy stuff, really. That's where our back office. On the front end, we don't use it at all. In fact, we
Yeah.
provide the personal approach within the AI and data market. I don't need to use it. I can get metrics whenever I want on how many candidates I've sent, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the data stuff, all handled by applications and all of that. But if I'm honest, we use this again or Teams and we speak. We don't send an AI automated message, never, not interested. We believe in candidate engagement is the human in the loop element of everything we do. So automation for the back end, just to keep it there, keep it running, because typically James and I are crap at that bit. And then the bit we're good at is making relationships and engaging people. And, you know, the odd call with child here and sorry, like that kind of stuff. It just brings a more personal approach in. So that's how we separate the two.
I could say you had a very good intuition, probably after these 25 years of experience, but I have tried automated outreach and it doesn't work. And now I'm doing some kind of automated outreach, but I remove the AI part. It's like I'm sending a flat message, and when somebody replies, I reply and I keep doing the conversation.
Yeah.
Because the AI generated message doesn't work. But it didn't for me. Maybe in the future it gets better.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't for us. I mean, you know, we use recommendation and referral a lot anyway, so we need to be able to speak to those people. And if they were to receive automated messages, you know, at CTO level and stuff, it would just come across that way. It would come across as a bit plasticky, and we're very platinum, right? So we're not that one. We're this one, definitely. And I think we don't want to be fake. So if there's a problem, and there's a lot of things that people say on the phone, they're not going to send me to an AI message. So we don't need to use it. So every message we send is personal.
Even I have seen that you guys are very active on LinkedIn. And I try I'm active as well. Maybe not as active as you are, but I tried writing like more longer articles, whatever, with AI because it's more accurate, but it doesn't work. Sometimes you write a message, you have a typo, and it goes viral. But then when you try to write the perfect thing with AI, it doesn't. So I think
you use the big dashes are a giveaway, right? The big dash. Get rid of the big dash.
Yeah. I know.
Because you read it now and you're just reading the post and you're like, there's the big dash. You didn't write that.
Yeah, exactly. People really value real. And I think in the past, it was a bit different because if somebody was creating value and writing the right things with the right research, it was really valuable. But today it's not anymore because we value what is difficult. And this is not difficult anymore. Anybody can do it. So
I agree. Really... And I think, you know, look, we know our market probably better than most people in the industry, and from a talent perspective, like we really know it. So why we just talk about what we know? You know, I don't know how ChatGPT works or anything like that. Really, you know, I can find you someone that does. I can find you someone that could probably build the new one. But we know what we're good at, and we just advocate that. You know,
good way to go. All right, so let's switch to speak about the industry. Where do you think the job industry is going? What are the changes in which direction do you think it's going? How do you see it?
So we're ingrained in the sector that's moving at pace. So for us, it's just big corporates are now investing in AI. You know, the board level, the CEO said, I really want that, but doesn't really know what he wants. So he needs a specialist that can come in and drive that change and build a change. I think a lot more organizations are looking to smaller consultancies. You know, there's still a place for your Deloittes and your PwCs, but I think they're moving towards a model where they will look at specialists like they used to use big recruitment companies under a managed service agreement. They are actively looking to use specialists that know how to find the talent now and treat it seriously and really add value. I think they do the same for consultancies. I think in terms of opportunities, those core jobs are still there. They don't seem to want as many entry-level positions unless those people are embracing AI. See, because we work technical, right? Everything says, and an appreciation for AI or an understanding of generative AI or the ability to look at training in AI. You know, that's on everything. No specifics, but they're gearing up to know that they've got to use it, right? So that's what they want to do. But there's still all the other jobs there. I think, if I'm honest, more back office functions will disappear as we move forward with AI. So your finance teams don't necessarily need to have the level of headcount in them that they did used to have. I think that's fair to say. HR, again, a bit more anything process, you know, someone doing, if you've got so there's a big IT consultancy that has 25 people monitoring absence across its group. Do they need that, or would automation do it? And actually, would automation or AI automation or whatever you want to call it, would that be more accurate?
Yeah.
We know it would be, because if
Yeah.
Mavis in HR that monitors absences have Monday to Friday off for a week, what happens? It
Yeah.
falls down, right? So,
And in terms of experience required for engineers, because in the past, I remember some job openings. I need somebody specialist like in this little like library integration of Google Maps API, something super specific. Now with AI, anybody can quickly catch up or generate code. So I would expect, like we discussed before, companies to look for robust engineers that can learn fast
yeah.
and they have experience in different fields rather than super specific in one programming language. Are you seeing something like this?
We're seeing people that they want people to, this ruffles a few feathers, but remote working, right, is changing. People want people in the office because you can
Yeah.
collaborate, especially when you're building stuff in AI and that you need to be with people. I don't know if you're a fan of the office, but we see it more and more. They want you in the office 2, 3, 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Typically, they're redesigning the offices now. I think Steve Bartlett's recently come out, as he's redesigned one of his business's offices, and it's more like a cafe. So people talk, people embrace. I think the day of the remote coder are numbered, really. I think they want people to come and collaborate. And that means that there's going to be a shift in how people do that. Because right now you can get, we work with customers that are like, I don't care where they are, as long as they can work the UK hours and they can code in this language. Now
I,
we're starting a slight tweak. It's, I want them to code in that language. I want them to come to our London office twice a week.
yeah. I kind of was expecting this. I was working remote 10 years ago when remote wasn't a big thing. My role was to build the small team. This
Yeah.
company, I spent a couple of years. It was a full remote team and there were a lot of challenges. It can work, but it's really hard for managers because one of the most difficult part of the job of manager is to keep people motivated, right? And motivation is hard, but when somebody is in a complete different place, they have personal problems that you don't know, because if you're in person, you build these relationships and you can help people. But when it's remote, people treat the job, well, they treat it differently, right? It feels more, it's always an exchange, money in exchange of work. But when it's remote, it's more like transactional. And
Yeah.
this is my feeling. When you go to the place, you can really build this team identity, this small community. It's like a little family. And I think with COVID, we went to the other extreme. Everybody was remote.
Yeah.
And now in the long term, I think it's necessary to be with people. So I'm a fan of going to the office. Usually I try to go every day. I like to have the flexibility because sometimes, I don't know, you need to wait for a delivery or something at home. But
Yeah,
in
it's
general,
nice to have that trust, and but back in the day, you used to have to earn that trust, right? And now it's almost like it's a prerequisite, so it seems a bit false. I think you should be able to work from home, as 2, 3 days a week if necessary. But I think you need to embed in the team so you know that culture.
yeah.
And a lot of organizations have got really nice offices,
Yeah. And now they are trying to have a better environment to give, I don't know, free food, whatever, to try to build this culture of going to the office more organically, not
Yeah.
forcing people.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I think it's important, especially building stuff.
Yeah.
It's like if you have a load of designers, graphic designers, and they're not collaborating together, the product looks disjointed. You need to work together.
Yeah, with these remote teams, sometimes, well, it's companies that are full remote. They have some offsites a couple of times per
Yeah,
year.
important.
Yeah, and it's crazy how after meeting the other people face to face, the relationship improves a lot. And then, yeah, you are remote, but it's a different treatment. It's a different kind of collaboration.
So we're working with a customer who they probably don't mind us even mentioning it, right? So they are producing a no hate football app.
Okay.
So it's hard to describe. In fact, download it. It's join Striver, but their co-founders, one of them's based in the UK. The other two co-founders are Roberto Carlos and Gilberto Silva. So one's based in Brazil because he's a 3 times World Cup champion, and the other one is, based here, there, and everywhere. And we work with those guys, and they're fully remote. Every 2 weeks, they all meet.
Wow.
The developers all meet. The developers, the management team, the operational team. The co-founders all meet, etc., etc. It's really exciting. If you love football, it's
Yeah.
a really great app to get involved with, and it's been great for us. My daughter was a mascot at their charity game. They're approachable people building something really special, and I think that is purely remote because they're cross-continent and everything else, but they make the time for everyone to meet up and collaborate because they're on a mission. It's a mission, and no hate thing is a mission. So
Yeah.
I think I get a lot from the way they do it. James and I, we're two co-founders with an external team. We meet the external team, our back office and all of that. We meet them probably 2-3 times a year, but James and I work together every day. Probably 1 day a week we don't, but other than that, 4 days a week we work together. So it's like being in an office, so we can bounce ideas off each other.
Every 2 weeks, living in Brazil and the other ones in UK, it's really
I
tough.
don't know their travel plans, right? But
Wow.
if you're worldwide international football stars, then you travel and do all sorts of charity work.
But I remember in the past I was traveling every month, and sometimes it gets tiring to fly every month because, probably I wasn't flying in the same conditions, right? They probably will have private planes, but still,
He signed my daughter's football shirt, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to ask you a very personal question. If you need to define success, not just professionally, but in life for you, what is success?
So my terms of success changed after my daughter defeated cancer. It used to be things, cars, watches, clothes, all of that kind of stuff. Now I determine success by the joy in her face when she is experiencing a new activity or a new country or anything. So we define success now by experiences. Personal experiences, getting on the plane to a new country, learning to skateboard, snowboard, or whatever it is, but defined through her because she nearly didn't have the opportunity to do that. And that realigns your whole way of thinking. So mine used to be about success was things, and now it's definitely based on being happy and not stressing.
Yeah, I love your answer. Usually, for me, it's a mix of health, wealth, and family. But at the end, I think the consequence of having those three is you have you can have experiences. Otherwise, you can't really.
So wealth shouldn't be defined by financial. Wealth is by happiness, really, isn't it? And Sienna brings utter happiness to me. So in that case, that's my busy. I'm already successful.
Yeah. But at the same time, you need to have a minimum to be able to be happy, right? And to afford, I don't know, a nice place to live is.
Yes, of course, but don't sweat the small stuff. It doesn't have to be a massive place.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't sweat the small stuff in life, and bigger, more worrying things in the world than is this going to work or not. It will work because we're passionate about it, and if we have to change it, model, flex, that's cool. But just keep it. As long as you're stable and you're happy in your mental health, I think that is the most important thing. That is success in its own right.
Yeah, 100%. And if you're 22 years old goes to your office and you can have a chat, could you tell him something? What would you tell him?
So I started in recruitment that time, and my boss told me to just keep it simple and do the basics and do them every time and everything else will work out. And I still live by that. So I've taken his advice and kept it. Probably wouldn't have married my first wife, but that's a different story, right?
Yeah.
So I'd probably swerve that one in favor of the second, but who knows?
Yeah, and sometimes when I think about this is a super interesting question. If I tell something to my 22 years old self, I don't know if he will listen.
I wouldn't have listened. No. We wouldn't have listened.
Yeah, cool. So now about Agentix Global, if there is one thing that you wish you knew before you started, is there something?
What would I wish before I started What would I wish I'd known before I started Agentix Global? It's a really hard question because we feel like we've jumped in at the deep end anyway. And with the experience we had, we just wanted to do everything differently. So we had to kind of rework everything we did. Because working for corporates is very regimented, and suddenly we were in charge of every decision. So actually, no, the support that we've had from our investors, SSG, have really allowed us to do what we've done to ourselves. I mean, a couple more hours in the day, stuff like that, but you can't have that, right? So I think we're exactly where we need to be. I wouldn't
Okay.
change a thing about it.
Amazing. I love this because it's not usual, like I'm really happy for you.
We got into it at the right stage. We got into it knowing how all the competitors do it and knowing that we want to do exactly the opposite.
And
Exactly.
I think it was a perfect timing. Now the AI industry is exploding.
Bear in mind, we've been doing it 7 years. It wasn't exploding when we started doing it. It was an uphill travel. My co-founder would say it's like pushing treacle up a hill to start with, because it was, no one really wanted to do automation. No one was interested in AI, et cetera, et cetera. And now his analogy is it's like having a knife fighting the phone box, how busy it is.
All right, so we're wrapping up. So if you want to send a message to your customers and the job seekers, what message do you send?
I'd say that if you're looking for a speed of turnaround and you want pace put into your recruitment processes, then you should take advantage of our USP to find candidates and get them through the process within 72 hours. And if you're a candidate who actually wants a real job, not necessarily looking on LinkedIn as your first point of call, I would phone an Agentix who will have customers looking within a very short time scale, and you can get through that process and have it managed by, I would say, recruitment veterans that look younger than they actually are.
Amazing. Yeah, I love this promise of 72 hours. We're going to do a post about this.
And actually, yeah, please do a post. And if we do place you, you will get a really cool bright yellow t-shirt. And who doesn't want a bright yellow t-shirt with A written on the front? And that's just because every candidate we place is awesome. That's so
Amazing.
cheesy.
Cool. And something to job seekers, should they contact you proactively
Yes,
or
please. Yeah, contact us via LinkedIn's always good because we're always on it. Or they can have my email address, which is just mark@agentixglobal.com.
amazing. Great. And to finish, I love to ask this question. What is your superpower as a founder?
Superpower as a founder is, I would say that I'm adaptable. That's my biggest skill. Adaptable to the situations. No, pleasure. Thanks, Alan. Take care.